Well, folks, welcome to another episode of Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. It's taken us a while to do this one, but it's finally here. We're really excited. We have Francis Ruiz from Buckcherry. How are you doing, sir?
All right, what's happening? Excited.
Um, so I guess the first question I have, I catch you here. You guys are always playing. It seems like you never stop.
Yeah.
How many shows did you guys do last year?
Oh, geez. You know what? I think we averaged like in 20. I know like during COVID, we weren't supposed to be playing and stuff like that. We managed the year of COVID. We still pulled off about 20 shows, wherever they would actually allow us to play, Sturgis, bike festivals, that sort of thing. And the year after that, which was 2021, I think we did about 130 shows, I think.
Wow.
Something like that. I think it could have been more than that, but I know for a fact that year I don't know anybody that toured or that played as many shows as we did. And that's not trying to pat ourselves on the back. It's just that's the way the band is. The band loves to tour. The band loves to work.
Those are facts, man. I mean, like I see
Oh
your
yeah,
socials, and
yeah.
and here, you guys just finished a run with Skid Row, correct?
Yep, we did,
And
and we did first leg. And there's going to be it's gone so well that the promoters have added two more legs already to the
that's
show that we're
incredible.
doing in the fall. So and possibly more after that. Sometimes there's just two bands that get together and work really well, and this seems to be one of those situations.
So in between that, you guys aren't sitting on your rears. You're going to go out on your own and do some shows while in between of all that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, we have a busy year entirely ahead of us. All summer long, we're going to be flying out and doing basically, we're going to be still flying out, basically meeting our bus and our gear, which is different than a lot of bands. When you do fly out shows, it's like you're playing on rental gear, and it's kind of a big hustle and bustle. But what we're doing is we actually fly out, get on the bus, our own gear, our crew, and we go like bus out three shows, and then we'll fly home for about 2 days while the bus travels to the next location. Then we'll fly out again, meet the bus, and so we're just like bouncing back and forth all summer. But got some good shows that are going to be happening. I think we got some with Tesla. We have a show with Kid Rock coming up. We're doing Rocklahoma. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff. A lot of
So, I
blazing
mean, that
festivals.
it's got to be. I mean, the way the business is now is so different than it used to be, and obviously COVID kind of changed things again. And then, you hear people talking about the cost of fuel for buses, and it's hard, right? Um,
Mhm.
how do you guys, I guess, work it so that and maybe what you're talking about describing makes sense for you guys, but like there must be a lot of business meetings to make sure this makes sense as well as doing the job, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it has to be feasible. Obviously, the band has to make money to continue doing what we do. And somehow, management worked it out to where it makes sense. Um, we're able to do that, which is a really fortunate thing. It's like it's nice to be able to have the luxury of having the bus and have your own gear and stuff like that. It just makes everything go a lot smoother for everybody. But I mean, it's the bottom line is the bottom line, and it has to make sense with the numbers. And fortunately, it's working for us.
Yeah, and I mean it's interesting you mentioned that because sometimes you'll see a show and they'll be like the price of tickets, they're gouging, and it's like, oh, you know what? That's not always the case. I mean, sometimes it is, but sometimes like, this is the absolute minimum to get this thing going.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean that's a hard thing to say because we're not really involved, or at least I'm not involved in the ticket prices. And I see the prices of certain concerts and I'm like, holy crap, it's like outrageous. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of hands in the pot, so to speak. And however that gets distributed is another thing. There's different promoters that work different ways. But I mean, we have just the general way the budgets work is we have a guarantee. We know how much we're going to get paid for a certain show, and we basically base the tour on that.
Mhm.
See how much our costs are going to be versus how much we're going to be bringing in, and it has to, everybody's salaries are paid, and it has to make sense, so that's something that has to be worked out ahead of time. It's like if you go out there not knowing what you're going to make, you're going to come back with a big bill, or not be able to finish the tour if you're not planning ahead like that. So
Absolutely. And people need to know that, because I mean, like, they call it the music business because it is a business, right? I mean, you initially start it because it's fun, but dollars and cents and money's exchange. And I mean, that's kind of the way the world works.
well, it's our job. I just saw an interview that Brian Wheat from Tesla just said. He said, most of these bands that are out here, this is our job, and we're working. He says, he was saying, we weren't fortunate enough to write, the White Album or the Black Album, or Hysteria or something like that. That propels you to a whole different, level of budgets and everything else, but the majority of the bands that are out here are doing it, because we love it. Two, it's we've managed to make doing what we love our job, but it does have we do have to have money coming in to be able to stay out there on the road. Otherwise we just can't do it.
Absolutely. We're going to take a little break because, like, as we were saying, we got to pay some bills on this sucker. So we're going to take a little break, and we're going to come back with Francis after this. Welcome back to Rimshots with Sean, here with Francis from Buckcherry. I guess the last piece on touring that I forget to ask people, but I'll have you describe it, because people don't understand. It's fun, but the 2 hours that you're on stage really is pretty small compared to the way your day is kind of set out. Like, it's very regimented. And talk about that for a little bit, because people might not understand that.
Absolutely. I mean, the day's pretty long. I'm one of those people that doesn't like day offs, because that to me is just like I'm sitting around, unless we're someplace fun, that has something interesting. But a lot of the times you're parked next to a gas station in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing to do, and you're just trying to figure out what ways to entertain your time until the show comes. When the show day happens, we're pretty stacked. We have sound check, then everybody tries to grab some food, and then we do our meet and greet, and then and then get ready for the show is kind of how it is. And depending on who we're touring with and stuff like that, the show times vary and stuff like that, but there is a lot of downtime, and the way that we just operate on the road is different too. I personally I'm a night owl. I think I mentioned this to you.
Yeah.
I stay up till 5 a.m. I was up till 6 a.m. this morning, actually, tweaking on some drums, and basically that's kind of what I do on the road too. So I'll stay up till 5. That's when I get creative at night and doing just different things to occupy myself. But I'll like sleep until like 1 in the afternoon, and that's not to try to be lazy. It's just try to if I'm waking up at 1 and my show time is at 9 or 10 o'clock, that's still a long part of your day that you have to occupy with something. So I try to shorten that gap as much as possible, and everybody else has different routines and stuff like that. Josh and Stevie, they're early risers, and they get up and they start exercising, and they do that whole thing, but if everybody wakes up at the same time, then we're all on top of each other, and that's never good. We're all waiting for the one coffee machine on the bus, etc. But so it's nice to be able to stagger it. But yeah, the downtime is a lot, and you have to find different ways to occupy it. Some people exercise. I do a lot of art, on my computer, and on different things, and I go for super long walks, just to kind of get away, be in my own quiet, clear space, and you kind of find your own lane when you're out there doing that.
So you did mention you were a night. It was funny because when we were texting, I was at a local jam that I like to support here, and you sent me a picture because I mistook I thought you were using another kit, and you said, no, I'm a Yamaha guy, and you took a picture, you showed me all your stuff. And you had that little machine. I asked you what it was for, and you said, basically it's a click track for yourself and I'm assuming maybe some triggers or something else. There's this huge thing right now on about Blabbermouth. It seems to be every story tracks, right?
Yeah.
You guys don't use tracks, but I would be interested to get your point of view because as a drummer, I'm a drummer as well. It's a skill set to be able to play with a click track, right? People don't understand that.
It is. I mean, I've never really been challenged by it. It's like the first thing that we ever start doing as drummers is we start playing along to the radio, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, that's playing to a click track,
right?
Because you got to stick with that thing, and it's just you don't hear the cowbell going or the beep beep beep.
Yeah.
You're still playing with another entity that's keeping the time for you, and it's so I think early on, at least for me, it just was kind of natural to be able to play along with something. It never felt I never felt vulnerable just being like, I don't have a click track, or I don't have anything like that too. So, but it definitely changes the way that you approach it if you have a click versus if you don't have a click, because if you don't, then it's entirely onto you. Mm-hmm. The time. And what I like about it is it just keeps everybody honest. But there's a couple different advantages to using a click, and one is like for us, well, one, it keeps the song true to the album speed, mm-hmm. which is nice because that's ultimately how it's going to sound the best. Mm-hmm. Two, your vocalist is relying on, just like we have muscle memory with how we play, your vocalist also has a sort of a muscle memory with his breathing pattern, mm-hmm. and breathing timing and technique and stuff like that. If you're playing the song too fast, you're going to disrupt his breathing pattern without how he approaches that song. So you're going to make him be short of breath. You're going to make him not be able to get all the words in properly, or any of that sort of thing. So it really helps him in that respect. And the other thing is that, I've been in situations even early on in high school where, if the audience wasn't reacting like the singer was expecting them to react to a certain song, he always blamed me, saying I was playing the song slow and wanted me to speed it up. I'm like, no, this is the right tempo. And it's like, and if he's having a hard time on stage breathing, like I was saying, then all of a sudden I'm playing too fast. So the drummer's always the one getting the blame for it.
I love that, man, because I tell you, I play in one band, we're all on the click, which is great. I play in another band that I use it, and it's like, it's funny because everybody thinks the drummer speeds up, but it's hard to play along with the click when you can also hear somebody else that's sort of playing to you, but kind of doing their own thing. And people don't understand that, right? That's a tough go. Yeah.
I've had to adjust my in-ear mix because there are people that want to push. And like for us, I'm the only one that listens to the click. Right. So, and I've learned, over the years how to play around the click. I know if I want to push a part that I can do that. I know the click's going to stay there. I know I can come back to it and whatnot. If I fall off, it's no big deal. Actually, there's times that the clicks malfunctioned or the cables have screwed up and stuff like that too. And I just keep playing, and my tech will kind of figure it out and get it back running. And it's pretty cool. It's a really cool feeling when he starts it up again and you're still in time, or your meter's good, And I guess that's just from practice. You get used to playing songs at a certain speed. It's just kind of falls into place,
Absolutely. Man, this is going fast. We're going to take one more break, then we're going to come back, Francis, and maybe we'll geek out a little bit because you're when you sent me the picture of your gear and what you're using, I'm always fascinated by that. So we'll be back after this, folks.
Okay.
So, folks, Rimshots with Sean, back with Francis from Buckcherry. And you want to kind of, I guess, touch a little bit more just on the track thing because, again, it seems to be such a hot topic, and it's been going on forever. It's not a new thing, right? But all of a sudden, it's kind of like, we got a scoop. Somebody uses tracks.
It is. It's something that has been going on for a long time. And there's a lot of different feelings and opinions about that, I've read a lot of actually interviews and about different people that have been in the industry for a long time and what their perspective is on that, on using tracks and whatnot. And it seems like the general consensus is that if you're using them in a way to embellish certain parts that maybe you recorded in the studio, like keyboard pads or things that you can't recreate, like violins or things like that, then it's okay. It's acceptable to do stuff like that, because you want the song to sound great when you play it live too. And those are just things that you can't recreate unless you're going to hire a string, an orchestra, or some people have horn sections that there's just no way that, we were talking about money earlier. It's like, if you can't afford to hire a horn section to travel with you to play those two songs and still have to have them on have an extra bus and have everything else just to play, one song or two songs, if they happen to appear on the set, it's just not a feasible thing. So in those cases, it seems like the general consensus is that it's accepted to be able to do stuff like that. It's when you start putting tracks of instruments or instrumentation that you should be able to play on your own, like drum parts or an entire guitar track that's playing, or vocal tracks. If the lead singer has doing that, has his vocal tracks behind him, or background vocals or something like that, then that's when it gets a little like kind of cheesy. And that's, I'm speaking for rock and roll, because I know that in the pop world, they all do it. In the hip hop world, I don't think I've ever seen a hip hop performance where the artist wasn't just playing along to the album. You know what I mean? It's just, you could hear the album voice on the back of it. I've never really liked that. But for rock and roll anyway, if you can play the instruments, you should be able to create that live. And when there's one guitar player and there's 10 guitar tracks going, that's when it gets kind of cheesy.
I'd agree. And I mean, here's the thing. I mean, when Peter Criss did Bath in '77, did everybody think, like, to your point, that was a 80-piece orchestra? That was backing tracks, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's okay. And that's cool. And I know that right now too, even in the rock and metal world, there's certain genres of music that 100% rely on their tracks, because it's just the style of music. If you're doing industrial stuff, or if you're doing, there's a whole lot of stuff going on. I mean, you're basically playing along to tracks, but when you're talking about, bands like Aerosmith, AC/DC, and that sort of thing, I don't really, if you use it as just a slight embellishment for things, like I said, that you can't possibly have on the road, then it's cool and it's okay. And I know bands have been doing it for a long time, and I worked behind the scenes for a lot of bands. So I got to see a lot of which bands were using what. I was responsible a lot of times for running that stuff, DAT machines and Pro Tools and whatnot and stuff like that. And it's just kind of a nice feeling not to have to rely on that. With Buckcherry, if we Buckcherry has always been kind of like anti using any of that stuff. Like, Josh doesn't ever even want to use triggers on anything. We don't trigger anything. The modules that I have on my kit are just for my in-air mix. And what that is, I have a Yamaha EAD10, which is a module that it's like basically a kick trigger that you can put on there, but it's also a microphone. And if you look into it, it's a really brilliant tool, and you can use it at home for rehearsals, or if you're doing small gigs and you're not miking your whole kit, but you want to have it kind of processed through a sound, has different kit settings and stuff like that, so you can make your what you're hearing in your ears sound different than what it would just acoustically. And for us, we don't travel with a monitor engineer, so what I do, I just have it on a reverb setting.
Oh, okay.
So the mic picks up the whole kit, but it also picks up the audience, picks up a bunch of stuff like that. And with my snare, if it's real dry and I just need more presence on it, I just turn it up, and all of a sudden I get that, that
Nice.
huge reverb thing, and it just helps me with my playing. Sometimes as a drummer, you probably know, if your drums aren't sounding the way that they're supposed to sound, we have a tendency to try to beat it out of the gear, and that's not really doing anything. Instead you're sitting there murdering your snare drum because it doesn't have the presence that you want it to have. Instead, I just add a little reverb and it's cool, and then you can play with dynamics instead of just having to feel that you got to destroy your equipment.
That's a great point, because I practice on the Roland TD50s, and you just have an amazing sound when you're practicing.
Yeah.
I found that I've had to get into the habit of not practicing the day before a show, so that when I get on my acoustic kit, you can get spoiled when everything sounds so
it's
amazing.
Not that big of a contrast.
Yeah. So it's like I just kind of have to let my head kind of clear and then go and do my thing. So we got a couple of minutes left here, but I would be an absolute fool if I didn't cover what you're using, because you squared me up there. You're a Yamaha guy through and through, which is awesome. One of the things I love about your setup, you've almost got we'll call it the Vinny Appice thing, where you have the two toms, and it looks like you would have a second kick, but you have the kick, and it's a look that you got so used to seeing people play the 5-piece with the 1 and 2 on the floor. That's a nice clean look. How long have you been playing your set like that?
Well, I've always kind of been a double bass drummer.
Yeah.
So it really is a double bass setup. It's the 2 up, 2 down, 2 kick setup is what it is, except you just don't have the left kick drum. That's really all it is. For me, I've tried using the 1 up, 2 down configuration, but what happens is that now my tom, you got the widest part of the tom resting up against the widest part of your snare drum.
Yeah.
Right. Now then you're competing, like, okay, if I have my snare drum where I want it, my tom's too far. Mm-hmm. If I have my tom where I want it, now my snare drum's too close. And I found myself that I was playing on the not hitting the center of either drum. I was hitting kind of off center. And I was like, well, so when I use the 2 toms, it gives me that nice little indentation, that little cove that I can now push my snare drum all the way up and still have my toms where I want them. So that's one reason why I like the 2 toms, and it also changes the position of your toms. When you're doing the 1 up, 1 down, your tom's kind of like directly in front of you.
Right.
I like it a little more off to the side, because then it shortens the distance between that tom and your floor tom.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're making a big jump. It depends. It really, either is cool. It depends what you're playing and how you're playing it. If you're doing straight up bottom beats all day long, it works. If you're doing Phil Rudd all day long, it works. But for me, it was mainly the because of the position, because I couldn't get my snare where I wanted it and keep my toms where I wanted them, as far as my wingspan, which is kind of a short wingspan, but still,
people don't realize how quirky drummers are too, right? Because like, we did a show a couple of weeks ago, and I was on this riser that was kind of shaking, and I went to hit a cymbal, and what the hell's going on? I kept missing it. What was going on was the cymbal was moving just half an inch, and I was actually missing the strike because the cymbal was wobbling. And people don't realize, man, your setup is a real personal thing, but it's a quirky thing too, right?
Absolutely. And you feel different. One day you might feel tight, and then everything is going to feel like it's really far, and you got to bring it in a little bit. Once you have a couple shows in, you start to loosen up, and all of a sudden your close setup now feels a little tight, and you're like, oh, okay, I can spread out a little bit now. I'm a little bit looser, so it changes. I get up there every single day and kind of just, move everything around just even slightly. And it's just, but I'm one of those people too. I'm one of those guys that if my logo's in the wrong position, or a little something, it's distracting, and I'll be staring at that logo. It's kind of an OCD thing. It's like it has to be right.
We're
You
cut from
know?
the same cloth, my man. I'm the
Yeah.
same way.
Yeah.
So last thing, and part of the reason why I want to get you on here is because you guys are going to be out here in June. I think it's June 29th. You play the Marquee in Halifax, I believe. Some friends of mine are opening for you guys in the 3 shows that you're doing here.
Nice.
The last time you guys played here, I didn't get. I was away, but I heard nothing but amazing things. I am going to go to this show. Just give a little plug, I guess, for your tour that's coming up. When's it start?
Well, we leave in about 2 weeks again. You know, and like I said, we're going to be going out. This first one is going to be a little 10-day run for us, and then all summer long, we're going to be again flying out, coming back home, flying out, coming back home, flying out, coming back home. But we're going to be working every single week.
Mm-hmm.
But we're just going to be going back and forth. So it's not like we're getting on the bus and you know, have that whole thing where we're just going to be out and not come home. So you know, and like I said, it's going to be different bands each show, and so it's not per se a tour. It's just we're going to be working and busy all summer long. And then I think August 31st is when we start the second leg of the Buckcherry Skid Row tour, and then there's a third one after that I'm not really sure what the dates are of that just yet. But the new album is, you know, we haven't talked about that. New album's coming out June 2nd.
Okay.
And it's called Volume 10, and it comes out June 2nd. We've already released 2 singles off that. One has a video. The first one was a song called Good Time, and there's a video for that. You can check it out on YouTube. Second one they released is called Let's Get Wild, and that one is not with a video, but it's on Apple and Spotify, and they've already added it to a bunch of playlists and stuff like that, so you can check that out. And then the full album is going to drop June 2nd, and I think there's possibly going to be a third single that gets released from that before that gets set. But the response has been amazing, you know, and we've seen it with just the amount of people that are turning up to the shows. So that's really awesome. Yeah.
You guys work hard, but you also work smart, and I want to thank you very much for doing this, man. Very nice to finally meet you.
Yeah.
And let's stay in touch, because when that album comes out, I want to push it out in these parts, because it'll be just in time for the show.
Well, absolutely. Right on.
Super. Thanks, Francis.
Yeah, we'll see everybody up in Halifax, and we can't wait to come to Canada again. You know, we all the shows in Canada always do great. You know, it's always a fun time coming up there. So, you know, and by that time the snow should be melted.
So here's hoping.
Yeah.
All right, my man. Chat soon.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Take it easy.